My girlfriend and I have been in a committed relationship for over 7 years. We've had countless discussions about getting married and starting a family together. A few years ago, she made the decision to leave her job and pursue a medical degree. However, last week I made a shocking discovery. While needing to borrow her phone to make a call, I unlocked it only to find an open WhatsApp conversation between her and an ex-boyfriend from high school, revealing that she had cheated on me. While I don't personally hold any ill will towards the guy, it's frustrating to see her choose someone who doesn't seem to have much ambition. Instead of feeling sad or heartbroken, I find myself filled with anger. I'm angry because I've invested so much in this relationship, believing that she would be the mother of our future children. I'm angry because I've supported her financially through college, covering expenses like rent, food, and tuition. It's just a wave of anger that I'm experiencing. With the landlord's permission, I've made arrangements for a locksmith to change the locks tomorrow while she's in class. I've gathered as much of her belongings as I could find and left them outside. I texted her to inform her of what I've done and let her know that if she needs anything else, her brother can come and collect it. I have no desire to see or speak to her ever again. Since taking these actions, both my parents and hers have been constantly calling me. They believe that while what she did was wrong, it's not enough reason to throw away the 7+ years we've spent together. They also argue that if I kick her out, she'll be forced to drop out of school and waste years of education. I'm seeking your opinion on this. Am I the one in the wrong here? Should I set aside my pride and approach this situation differently? It's worth mentioning that the lease is solely in my name and she hasn't contributed financially towards the rent throughout her entire time of living here. Update. Well, here's an unexpected turn of events. Today, I was hit with a bombshell. Over the weekend, both sets of parents tried to reach out to me, but I purposely ignored their attempts. However, they knew I couldn't avoid them forever, so they decided to wait for me outside my house when I returned from work. To my surprise, my girlfriend was with them. They insisted that I have a conversation with her, and after some resistance, I finally agreed. Once our parents left, we were left to face each other. Once we were inside, she began to apologize and plead for forgiveness. She expressed how our relationship meant everything to her and that she would never forgive herself for what she had done. It was the typical remorseful speech you'd expect from a cheater. And then she hit me with the most absurd excuse I've ever heard. And she claimed that a few weeks ago she discovered she was pregnant and it led her to have conflicting emotions about settling down and starting a family. According to her, she sought comfort from her ex, and that emotional support escalated into a physical affair. I couldn't make sense of it at all. We've always talked excitedly about starting a family, so it was quite a shock when she pulled out 2 pregnancy tests showing positive results. To further prove her point, she even offered to take another test in front of me, and once again it showed that she was indeed pregnant. According to her, she hadn't cheated on me until after she became pregnant, so she assured me that the baby was 100% mine. Skeptical, I asked to see her phone. Reluctantly, she handed it over, and to my dismay, I discovered countless text messages exchanged between her and the other guy since the time I kicked her out. Feeling overwhelmed, I asked her to wait outside while I processed everything. As she stood outside, I locked the doors, unblocked her on WhatsApp, and composed a lengthy text to express my thoughts and emotions. I'm reciting this from memory, so I don't have to open WhatsApp and see her reply. Whether you decide to have this baby is entirely your choice. However, there are a few things you should know. Firstly, if the child is indeed mine, I will be a responsible father and provide for them. But you need to understand that you will only ever be the mother of my child. We will never reconcile or get back together. The moment you betrayed my trust by cheating, our relationship was irreparably damaged. Secondly, I need you to understand that I will not have any contact with you until the child is born. Please refrain from reaching out to me during this time, as I want nothing to do with you. Finally, I want to make it clear that I will not assume any role in the child's life, nor will I sign any birth certificate until a paternity test is conducted. This situation could have been a beautiful blessing for our relationship and future, but instead, You used it as an excuse to betray me. I will never be able to forgive you for that. As for her reply, I haven't read it and don't plan to tonight. I also won't be providing any further updates on this matter. I have a strong feeling that the child is likely mine, so it seems that I am now forever connected to her through this. Found out my cheating wife had a year-long affair? She is hysterical and pleading me to stay together and fix things because it was a little mistake. Out of the blue, I discovered that my wife, whom I've been married to for 3 years, has been having an affair for the past year with one of her colleagues, someone I know personally. It wasn't intentional on my part, but one day I noticed her logged-in Gmail account on her laptop, and a particular email caught my attention. Curiosity got the better of me, and I ended up checking her phone, which confirmed my worst fears. I'll be honest, this really caught me off guard. Our relationship, up until now at least, seemed solid. We had a strong connection, were intimate regularly, and never had any major conflicts. We met during our college days and dated for nearly 2 years before tying the knot. We were even starting to talk about having children in the near future, especially since I have a stable job and have been making strides in my career. Honestly, I had no suspicions whatsoever. She's clever and managed to hide it well. There were no late nights, no emotional distance, and our intimacy remained intact. She never expressed any dissatisfaction or unhappiness in our relationship. I was completely clueless about any issues. Otherwise, I would have tried to address them. It was through her texts and emails that I discovered they would meet up during lunch breaks or leave work early to go to a hotel or motel. The other guy isn't married, but he does have a long-term girlfriend. I haven't informed her yet, and I haven't confronted the other guy either. Yesterday, I decided to take the day off work and seek solace at my friend's place. I confided in him about everything. As expected, when my wife arrived home, she bombarded me with calls and texts. At first, I ignored them, but eventually I picked up and she immediately burst into tears, begging for my forgiveness. She claimed it was a foolish mistake and pleaded for a chance to reconcile. We talked for a while, but I didn't offer much in terms of a response. I haven't made a decision yet on what I'm going to do. I won't deny that I still love her, but I have zero tolerance for betrayal, and this situation ranks high on that scale. When I was 18, I went through a deep and challenging depression that took me 3 years to overcome. The only thing that helped me during that time was exercise, particularly boxing. Now, I sense myself slipping back into that dark hole. Alongside my love for her, there's also an intense hatred directed towards her and the other guy. I've been considering confronting him and causing him harm, but my friend has advised against it. I recognize that my emotions are currently in control, which is why I decided to separate myself from my wife in our apartment for a while to allow logical thinking to take hold. I know that if I see her crying, I might start feeling sympathy, and I want to avoid that. At this point, my logical side suggests pursuing a divorce, but I'm still not completely certain. I've pondered whether I'll ever be able to trust her again, and honestly, I don't think I can. Let me tell you, I pride myself on being a fair-minded person. I always try to understand both sides of the story. That's why I'm struggling to make sense of this situation with my wife. She's always been intelligent and mature, so I can't wrap my head around why she would do something like this. She keeps telling me it meant nothing and she deeply regrets it. But then, why did she do it in the first place? I've been pressing her for answers, but all she keeps saying is that she doesn't know, and it was a momentary lapse in judgment. But a year-long lapse? It's made me question everything now. I'm wondering if I've wasted years of my life for nothing. I'm questioning whether I'll ever be able to trust another woman again. Right now, I can't even picture myself in another relationship. I'm not naive enough to believe that people are infallible, but what's the point of committing yourself to someone if they're just going to find someone else? Anyway, that's it. I had to let all this out somewhere, even online. Not sure yet what my next step is, but at the moment I can't see the marriage lasting. Her mother, whom I really like, has called me thrice, but I haven't answered. I haven't told anyone about it except my close friend that I'm staying with. I do have screenshots of the emails, texts between them as proof in case I need it. Update: There are a few important developments I want to share. Firstly, I've made the decision not to confront the other guy. It was just my emotions getting the best of me in the moment. Secondly, I will be getting an STD test and insisting that she does the same. No compromises when it comes to our health. Right now, I'm leaning towards separating because I can't envision ever seeing her in the same light again. I still need more time to think and process everything before having a serious conversation with her. In addition, her mother reached out to me, asking me to call her. She has always been a kind and nurturing person, so I plan to have a conversation with her before speaking to my wife. Update. Yesterday, I took a long walk and returned the call to my mother-in-law. I didn't delve into the specifics, but I did inform her that her daughter had been involved with someone else behind my back for a significant period of time. Understandably, she was upset, but fortunately, she didn't try to pressure me into staying with my wife. We had a lengthy conversation, and she suggested that I reach out to my wife, but I made it clear that I will only do so when I feel ready to have a conversation. As I was walking across a bridge on my way back to my friend's place, I had a fleeting thought of jumping off. It crossed my mind for a split second, but I immediately dismissed it and chuckled to myself. It's astonishing how our minds can conjure up such thoughts in difficult times. Anyway, I've decided that either tonight or tomorrow night, I'll have a serious conversation with my wife. Honestly, my mind is pretty much made up, and I'm leaning heavily towards asking for a divorce. I've thought long and hard about it, and I just can't envision a future where I won't hold some level of resentment if we stay together. I'll give her the opportunity to express her thoughts and feelings, and then I'll share my decision. I'll provide an update after our discussion, depending on how things unfold. Update. So my wife and I had a conversation, but to be honest, I didn't delve into all the questions that were suggested by users in the original thread. I realized that I didn't really want to know the answers to some of those questions, like whether they use protection considering our plans to have a child in the near future. Instead, the only question I asked her was a simple, why? I had actually asked her this question before through text, and I gave her a couple of days to really think about it. Well, we went for a walk together and had a long conversation. She explained that the other guy kept pursuing her, and eventually she started developing feelings for him. She admits that it was an immature and stupid decision on her part. She felt terrible after the first time, but they ended up seeing each other again after a few weeks. She assured me that she has completely cut off contact with him. Throughout the conversation, she appeared visibly upset, and I have to admit, I felt a strong sense of anger towards her, although I kept my composure and didn't raise my voice or show my anger. I just wanted to have an honest discussion. After she explained her reasoning, I asked her what she thinks we should do. She said she has been struggling to sleep for the past few days and has been searching the internet for books and advice on how to make amends for her actions. I expressed to her that I don't think I'll be able to view her in the same light anymore, and I don't want us to end up being a couple who are simply living together as roommates. I also made it clear that regaining trust seems like an impossible feat for me. She then started rambling about various techniques for rebuilding trust, some of which were mentioned in my initial post, like tracking her through GPS and having access to all her personal devices. I swiftly rejected that idea, stating that it's an unhealthy and impractical way for both of us to live, and that neither of us would want that. I made it clear that I didn't sign up to be her prison guard, but her husband. We walked in silence for a while before I finally spoke up and suggested that we should rip the Band-Aid off and get a divorce, allowing both of us to move on separately. She didn't say anything, but tears started to fall silently. I accompanied her back to our apartment and said goodbye. She asked if there was a chance I would reconsider, and I reiterated that even if I were to eventually forgive her for the affair, I would never be able to trust her as a husband trusts his wife. In a moment of frustration, I regretfully mentioned that I would never trust another woman again. I informed her that I would initiate the divorce proceedings and we could proceed from there. Well, it seems like this is the end of the road. I haven't had any interaction with the other guy, although a part of me secretly wishes I would bump into him and he would make the first move for whatever reason. When I do have the chance to speak with my wife again, I'll suggest that she contacts the other guy's girlfriend and inform her about what happened. Although I don't have any means to reach her since I don't have social media or her phone number. So here I am, at the age of 27, about to become a divorcee. What a wonderful addition to my resume, right? I don't really feel much at the moment, but I have a feeling it'll hit me like a ton of bricks once the divorce is official.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked. We could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie. making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.